Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Financially Speaking. My name is Cole Bruner from Bushka Retirement Solutions and Bushka Wealth Management. And of course, joining me today is my wonderful co host, Tony Shore. Now, if at any point during today's show you want to get more information, feel free to give us a call at 715-355-4445, or you can visit us online at retirewithbushka.com. That's retirewithbuska.com. And of course, make sure you subscribe to the program on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or Amazon Music, whatever your preferred podcast outlet is. And that'll make sure that you stay up to date with all of our upcoming episodes, especially in time periods where things are changing so rapidly, which parlays into our discussion today. So when the federal budget bill, commonly known as the Big Beautiful Bill, was signed into law in July, we, of course, wanted to walk listeners through the bill, describing which elements may affect them the most. And of course, over the course of the last few weeks, we've received a number of calls and emails from clients that are asking for more information on what this bill specifically means for Social Security. So we're going to address some of that in today's episode. I thought it would be a really good idea to dig into as much detail as we can in the time that we have allotted. But before we get into that very important topic, let's make sure to say hello to Tony, who's here with me today. Tony, how are you doing this morning?
Well, I'm doing great, and I get to spend my day talking to you. This is
So
fun.
it's obviously going to be great.
Obviously, I'm good. You know, we were talking about our travels and excursions this summer, and my family and I got to go out to Palm Springs, California, which is beautiful. Even in the summer when it's hot, it's a dry heat. There's no humidity, so it wasn't like the heat we had back here, which was nice. And, you know, it's surrounded by mountains. So you just take this tram straight up into the mountains and you can cool off. It's amazing. So I loved that. How about you? How have you been? You've been really busy there, haven't you?
Absolutely. Yep. Just recently got back from a trip to France, which was really exciting. I thoroughly enjoyed that. Got to take my sister out on her first big international trip, which was really fun. We really enjoyed that together. And of course, got to spend some time with some people that we thoroughly enjoy. And so it was really, really great. But now back into the swing of things. And of course, thanks to some legislative change recently, that's keeping us a little busier because obviously everybody's got questions about what's going on with this bill and how is it going to affect me, right?
Right. Well, and it's interesting because, you know, you said you've gotten calls and questions and emails from people out there, clients, people in the community wondering, hey, how is this going to affect me? Right. And what does the federal budget bill or the Big Beautiful Bill mean for me, and especially Social Security? Because there was some talk that it's going to eliminate taxes on Social Security, but it doesn't. But I know there's some things in this bill that can help. And there's always good and bad. And no matter what side of the aisle you're on, whether you're far left or far right, there are going to be things in this bill that you hate. And there's going to be things in this bill that you'll love.
Exactly.
It's 970 pages. There's bound to be something that's going to be beneficial for your personal situation. Probably some things that are going to be bad. But a lot of people want to know, okay, how does this affect things? And what does it mean specifically for Social Security and for seniors, right? Or those planning for retirement. So it's a hot off the presses show today.
It certainly is. Yes, very topical, I think, for today's conversation. So I think we should begin today's chat about this topic by closely looking at a recent USA Today article. It was titled Social Security Tax Breaks, What the Big Beautiful Bill Really Means for 88% of Retirees. And I think it breaks things down pretty nicely. So at the outset, let's be clear that I don't have a political dog in this fight, obviously. I simply do my best to find facts and then, of course, share those with, people, viewers of our TV show, listeners of our radio show, our podcast, as well as our clients and prospective clients. And as I'm sure many of you already know, some people think this new budget bill is great. And like you said, Tony, some others think it's a nightmare. Such is the nature of politics, right? So first, let's take a deeper look into the claim that 88% of people receiving Social Security won't pay any taxes on their benefit. According to the article, That 88% figure was touted by the Council of Economic Advisors, among others. Now, one of the big talking points here is that 88% of Social Security recipients could soon be exempt from federal taxes on their benefits. And while that headline sounds great, right, and it's meaningful, it's also important to understand the big picture here. So here's what we know. First of all, this isn't a jump from 0% to 88%. Right now, about 64% of seniors age 65 or older are already not paying federal taxes on their Social Security benefits. And that's thanks to existing exemptions, deductions, and also income thresholds that apply. Now, the current proposal would increase that number to 88%, mainly by introducing a new deduction for those who qualify. It would reduce the taxable portion of their Social Security income in some cases down to zero, but it's not necessarily a total elimination of taxes on benefits. The deduction amount is $6,000 per person. And while that could offer real relief for many retirees, it's also important to note that this deduction is set to expire in 2028. So unless it's extended or made permanent, we could see the percentage of seniors paying tax on their benefits revert back to current levels. Now, this all applies to federal taxes, and it's worth remembering that 9 states currently tax Social Security benefits to some extent. The good news is, in most cases, those state level taxes are applied gently or not at all, depending on your overall income.
Yeah, and if you're unsure how these changes might affect you or a loved one, talk to a financial services professional. I know they can give you a call, Cole, and talk to you and the team there at Bushka to
Mhm.
find out how it's going to affect you, because
Yeah.
I know it's your job and your team stays informed to help make thoughtful decisions for people and help
Right.
them make decisions about their financial future. So, what are the 9 states that do, in fact, tax Social Security?
Well, according to the Motley Fool article titled 41 States That Don't Tax Social Security Benefits, the list of those who do includes Colorado, Connecticut, Minnesota, Montana, New Mexico, Rhode Island, Utah, Vermont, and West Virginia.
I didn't
However,
hear Wisconsin in there.
no, Wisconsin is
That's
not
good.
part of the 9 states. So here in
Yeah.
Wisconsin, we do not tax Social Security benefits at the state level. So that's nice. Now, however, the article adds some interesting details about that list of 9 states. Hearing that list might cause a little worry for people that reside in those states, but let's break it down together, because the truth is not everyone living in those states actually ends up paying taxes on their Social Security. It all boils down to your income. So for example, let's think about Connecticut for a second. If you're a single filer or married filing separately, and your adjusted gross income is under 75,000, your Social Security benefits are not taxed by the state. If you're married filing jointly or filing as head of household, that exemption applies if your AGI is below $100,000. Now, other states like Minnesota, New Mexico, Rhode Island, and Vermont also have income-based exemptions. The thresholds are different in each state, but the pattern is similar. If your income falls below a certain level, you may not owe any state taxes on your benefits at all. And here's some potentially encouraging news out of West Virginia. The state is in the process of phasing out its tax on Social Security benefits. For the 2025 tax year, West Virginians can subtract 65% of their Social Security benefits from their taxable income. And starting next year, that jumps to 100%, effectively removing the state tax altogether. Now, the bottom line here is that state taxes on Social Security aren't always a given, but the details can be tricky. And it really depends on your unique situation, your income, filing status, and also your long-term retirement strategy.
Yeah, and I think a lot of our listeners and viewers out there probably didn't realize Social Security could be taxed at all, especially if you're not
Exactly.
retired yet and haven't experienced it.
Right.
But they can be taxed by the federal government, and if you live in one of those states, they can also be taxed by the state. But
Yeah.
hopefully, I know there's a push to remove taxes on Social Security altogether. That did not
Right.
happen.
Right.
But if our listeners out there have more questions or want to know how all these things apply to them, what's the phone number? How can they get a hold of you?
Well, Tony, I know that a lot of people out there have questions right now in relation to these topics, and I feel
Mhm.
it's really important for them to educate themselves as much as they possibly can so they understand how these things will truly impact their overall plan and also potentially make adjustments if necessary. And so, obviously, if your current advisor is not educating you about these things, or if you're not really sure where to get resources, I highly encourage you to reach out and have a conversation with one of our highly skilled advisors. And you can do so simply by calling us at 715-355-4445, or you can visit our website, retirewithbushka.com. That's retirewithbuska.com. You can check out some great resources out there on the website. You can also schedule that no cost, no obligation consultation anytime by calling the office or going to the website. You can do it either way. And of course, you can schedule in Wausau, Eau Claire, or virtually if that works better for you.
All right. Well, that's great. You offer that no charge, no obligation consultation, and you and the team there will sit down. I know you love hearing from folks out there, so I encourage our
Definitely.
listeners and viewers to pick up the phone, give you a call, and set up a consultation. Now, you've been talking about the federal budget bill, the big, beautiful bill, and
Yes.
we're looking at one of the big aspects is the bonus $6,000 tax deduction. You mentioned that briefly, and
Yeah.
what it means for Social Security. So, what do you have for us next on that?
Well, I think we'll keep going with that article that USA Today article that we were
Sure.
talking about before, that Social Security tax breaks, what the big beautiful bill really means for 88% of retirees. I think it's got a little bit more information on who qualifies for the new tax reducing deduction. So let's talk about a piece of legislation that's probably gotten the lion's share of the attention since it was signed into law in July, especially for those in or nearing retirement. That $6,000 tax deduction that could impact how much of your Social Security benefits are subject to federal income tax. So here's how it's currently written. Based on the version passed by the Senate on July 1st, if you're 65 or older and your modified adjusted gross income, or MAGI, is 75,000 or less as an individual, or 150,000 or less as a married couple filing jointly, then you may be eligible for the full 6,000 per person deduction. Now, for people with higher incomes, the deduction doesn't disappear right away, but it does start to shrink. If your income reaches 175,000 as an individual or 250,000 as a couple, the deduction does phase out entirely. So what does this mean in practical terms? Ultimately, it means that many retirees could see a reduced tax burden, especially those with moderate incomes. But it also means that this benefit is income sensitive. So it's not going to automatically apply to everyone.
Yeah, but I like those numbers. I like it because this is the one part of the bill that I think really does benefit the middle class.
Right.
Um, because those numbers, I think those numbers are high enough, those limits, to where a lot of people, I think the majority of people out there, will be getting that $6,000 deduction, and that is
Yeah.
per person, and that's a bonus standard deduction on top of
Yep.
the deduction that's already there for those 65 and older, which is an extra deduction,
Hmm.
and the standard deduction itself. So
Yeah.
this could be huge. And that kind of change highlights why it's so valuable, again, to work with you, because these numbers aren't just abstract.
Right.
They could directly affect your income tax strategies and your eligibility for other benefits. So I think if you're wondering how this might apply to your situation or how to structure your income to take full advantage of opportunities like this, again, reach out to your financial services professional. And I'm not going to name names, but I know a guy, Cole Brunner,
Absolutely.
Cole Bruner, right there. So yeah,
Most definitely. And I know about six more in my office that can help as well.
yes, exactly. Even Logan.
Even Logan.
I mean, he's
Absolutely.
not much to look at, with the beard and stuff, but he is sharp. That guy.
He
I'm
is
teasing.
sharp.
I'm giving Logan a hard time every chance I can get.
Absolutely. You have to, right?
Yeah.
All right. So now all of this, the deduction, the income thresholds, the potential tax savings, on the surface, it sounds like really good news, right? Especially for those who qualify. For many retirees, an opportunity to reduce taxes is an opportunity to keep more of their benefits, and most people feel that's a pretty welcome thing, right? But here's where it's important to zoom out for a moment. You also need to keep an eye on the long term health of the Social Security system. Right now, according to the article, Social Security is facing a projected funding shortfall. And by 2034, it's estimated that the program may only be able to cover about 81% of scheduled benefits if no changes are made. Now, that shortfall is largely due to the fact that more money is going out than coming in. And a portion of that incoming revenue comes from taxes on benefits. So, if fewer people are paying taxes on their benefits, this new deduction could accelerate, and that could mean even less money supporting the program. In other words, while this deduction may offer relief now, it could also potentially speed up the timeline for Social Security's financial challenges or result in reduced benefits at some point down the road. Again, this isn't about fear. It's about being informed and being as proactive as you possibly can. And this is why thoughtful, personalized strategizing matters. Tax breaks, income thresholds, program projections, these are all moving pieces. And it's our job as advisors to help our clients connect the dots in a way that protects their long term goals, because ultimately that's what's most important, right? I mean, saving a little bit of money now is great, but we need to understand how that bigger picture, so to speak, is going to affect your overall plan.
Okay. So you're implying there that it's possible that
Mhm.
the deduction highlighted in the new legislation, that $6,000 bonus standard deduction,
Yep.
could affect Social Security's long-term financial stability. Why is that possible?
Well, that's a good question. I think first we should note that Congress changes every 2 years, and that means legislation can change over time. So things in the new budget bill could potentially be tweaked or even eliminated in the coming years. But as for your question, there was actually an AARP article entitled What to Know About the New Tax Deduction for Older Adults, and it provides some useful data here. So earlier we talked about how this new deduction could lower the tax burden for many
Yeah.
retirees, but as always, there's more to the story, right? So many people don't realize that taxes on Social Security benefits don't go into the general US Treasury like other income taxes do. Instead, that money actually goes directly into two specific trust funds, one that supports retirement and survivor benefits, and one that supports disability benefits. Now, back in 2024, those taxes brought in around 55.1 billion with a B dollars for Social Security. Now, to put that into perspective, that's about 4% of the program's total revenue, the bulk of which still comes from payroll taxes paid by workers and employers, of course. And while 4% may not sound like much, every piece matters when you're talking about a system this large and this important. The trust funds are already projected to face shortfalls, possibly as early as 2034, of course, unless changes are made. And if that happens and no action is taken, we could see an across the board benefit cut of 19% or somewhere right around there. So, to dig a little deeper, the Retirement and Survivor Benefits Trust Fund, which is the one that serves the most retirees, is expected to face the biggest challenge here. It could be depleted as early as 2033. And according to estimates from the Nonpartisan Committee for a Responsible Federal Budget, some of these provisions in this bill including the new deduction could move that date up to 2032. Again, this isn't about taking a stance for or against any particular bill or policy. It's about understanding how all of these moving parts affect your retirement outlook and getting ready to make smart decisions in the face of uncertainty. That's why having a strategy and making sure that your strategy is flexible and responsive is so important, as well as having an advisor that stays up to date on all of these types of things and helps educate you on how that could affect your personal situation. Because a lot of times we talk in generalities, especially on the show, because we have to keep it more general. But in terms of individualized planning, these are all things that your advisor should be having proactive conversations with you about. And if they're not, it might be time to look for a second opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I think that's so important. So how can our listeners out there then get a hold of you regarding this, Cole?
Well, we don't hide, Tony, so they can simply give us
True.
a call at 715, or at least we don't hide well, I should say.
Right.
So they can give us a call at 715-355-4445. That'll connect you to either our Wausau or Eau Claire office. If you prefer to schedule in either location, totally fine. And of course, you can also go to our website as well and go through a very short questionnaire that'll help you to get scheduled with the right professional within our office. That's retirewithbushka.com. Again, retirewithbuska.com.
All right. Well, we've talked about this big beautiful bill, which is the federal budget bill signed into law on the 4th of July, actually, and
Yeah.
what it means for Social Security. I've enjoyed this show about this. What do you have lined up for our final segment today?
Well, Tony, for our final segment, I think we should push forward with a more detailed discussion about the big, beautiful bill by next considering how it may help those with significant assets. Now, there was another article, this one by Kiplinger, entitled Five Big Beautiful Bill Changes and How Wealthy Retirees Can Benefit. And I think it's got some eye-opening details here. The first change that we should make sure that we discuss is called the SALT cap. State and local taxes is what SALT stands for. And that's increasing from $10,000 as it stands today to $40,000. Now, the new $40,000 cap phases out for higher incomes. So if your taxable income is more than $500,000, that $40,000 starts to shrink, and by $600,000, it drops back down to $10,000. The new cap is also temporary with an exemption. With an expiration date, I should say, that triggers in 2030. So we're looking at a planning window here. For those who itemize their deductions, especially those close to the standard deduction threshold, this could be an opportunity, especially for charitable giving. Between now and 2029, your donations may provide a bigger tax benefit than they will after that particular cap expires. But like many strategies, this one is highly personal as usual. Your income, your gifting plans, future tax changes, these are all going to play a role in your situation. And that's why you need to work with a qualified financial services professional as well as a tax professional to model different scenarios and help create smart, confident choices. And of course, that's one of the reasons why we've got a tax professional right here in our office.
Yeah, and that's good because you incorporate that tax planning into it, and building a financial strategy with the assistance of a financial services professional and tax professional is a really powerful 1-2 punch.
Absolutely. Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself, Tony. Now, for those of you who do give to charity but don't usually itemize your deductions, here's a little bit of encouraging news. Under the current proposal, couples who take the standard deduction will still be able to deduct up to $2,000 in cash contributions to qualified charities. Now, that's a big deal for folks in their 50s and 60s who regularly give smaller amounts. In the past, those gifts may not have reduced your tax bill at all, but this change means they finally can. So if you're swiping a credit card or writing a check to your favorite cause, that generosity can now come with a bit of a tax benefit for you. Now, if this sounds familiar, it's because we saw a similar provision in the CARES Act back in 2020 and 2021. Now, for larger gifts or more advanced strategies like funding a trust or making donations over age 70 and a half, some financial professionals will still likely recommend appreciated securities or qualified charitable distributions, also known as QCDs. One other thing to watch for those who do itemize, there's now a 0.5% charitable giving hurdle. Similar to how medical deductions work, basically, that means that the first portion of your giving may not be deductible. So again, standard deduction donors could possibly come out ahead here.
Yeah. So I think that's good to know. What changes have been made to the estate tax exemption? There were some changes in there, right?
Yes, absolutely, Tony. Under the current law, the estate tax exemption was set to drop back down to around $7 million per person in 2026. But thanks to the latest legislation, that exemption will instead rise to $15 million per person in 2026. Now, for most people, that's not a number that they would have to ever have to worry about. But for those with significant estates, it means there's less urgency around using strategies like irrevocable trusts or different types of estate planning strategies to avoid that estate tax. With that being said, though, estate planning is still critical, but it's more about control, efficiency, and managing income, as well as capital gains taxes, than it is about the estate tax itself. Now, for those who aren't focused on leaving a large legacy, this can be a great time to spend Roth and taxable dollars in retirement. And if charitable giving is part of your plan, we'll likely recommend using pre tax accounts like IRAs to fund those gifts more efficiently. If leaving a legacy is important to you, then Roth conversions and spending down traditional retirement accounts might make more sense. But remember that Roths aren't the right fit for everyone. It comes down to timing, tax brackets, and your long term goals. All of that will certainly play a role. And that's why working with an advisor will really help.
Yeah, it definitely will. And Roths are huge. We've talked about those on many past shows, the importance of having a tax-free bucket of income in
Yeah.
retirement. You've mentioned that. And they're certainly worth a discussion with a financial professional like yourself before you make any final decisions, what you should put in a Roth, from where, how that rollover is made or transfer. And as you explained, it's not the right fit for everyone.
Right.
You want to find the best option for your personal goals and strategy, right?
Oh, most definitely. And I think we should take a moment to highlight something that isn't changing, but has a big impact on our planning conversions to Roth. Now, the tax cuts from the 2017 Tax Cuts and Jobs Act were set to expire for individuals in 2026. Now, that would have meant a return to higher marginal tax rates. But under the new legislation, those current personal tax brackets are staying in place for right now. And while nothing in Washington is ever truly permanent, as we know, having clarity on next year's brackets gives us more confidence in our planning. So, for many people, that means continuing to strategically convert to Roth IRAs, especially up to the 24% tax bracket. No, it's certainly not the right move for everyone, but it can be a great tool if you're trying to manage future required minimum distributions, Social Security income, and also rising tax exposure into your 70s. The 24% tax bracket is wide, and you may want to work with a financial professional to take advantage of whatever might make sense for you before you hit RMD age, which of course is now 73 or 75 years old, depending on your birth year. Now, these proactive moves may help soften some of those tax hits that you'll experience later in life.
Yeah. Yeah. And everybody wants to minimize their tax burden. That's a no
Of
brainer.
course.
And the way to do that, again, is to work with your team there at Bushka.
Yeah.
So before we go today, let our listeners know one more time, Cole, how they can do that. Set up that no charge, no obligation consultation.
Well, Tony, it's pretty simple to do. All they've got to do is pick up the phone and give us a call, 715-355-4445, or they can visit us online at retirewithbushka.com. That's retirewithbuska.com. We've got the ability to schedule that consultation right there on the website. And of course, you can schedule in our Wausau office, our Eau Claire office, or virtually if that works better for your situation.
All right. Well, thanks, Cole. And listeners, thanks for tuning in. Viewers as well. That does it for today's episode of Financially Speaking with our host, Cole Bruner.